But but let me go ahead and change speeds here. I think we done got the message across. I think you understand that now it was just a misunderstanding. The resurrection of the flesh is the reincarnation of the spirit. It was all a big misunderstanding. There are not going to be dead people walking around, headless people walking around. They not coming back. Your old, granddaddy, or, he's not coming back up out of the grave. That's not going to happen. What is going to happen, let me show you a little bit about what is going to happen. I'm going to catch my breath. Let me calm down as we start to wrap this thing up. We're still up here in chapter 7, verse 36. He says, this third era is the time of resurrection. The spirits had seemed dead, and the bodies their sepulchres. But the Master has come before them, whose word is of life, to speak to them, saying, arise, and rise to the light, to freedom. See, this is what he was talking about. Resurrection is our spirit man is being resurrected, and there's a lot of people walking around. We're out of touch with our spirit. Our spirits actually seem like they're dead. Because they are like paralyzed. They're in there, and you don't hear any movement out of them. They're powerless. They're weak right now, beat down by, what does it say? Materialism and the riches of this world. And so this is what's happening. This is the resurrection of those spirits, right? And so you think of the resurrection as being that your spirit man is being brought back to life, but you also have to think that your spirit man is actually going to live for forever. And even though your body is going to go in a hole, in so many years from now, some of you may live to be 115, 130 years old maybe, or whatever, but eventually it's going to perish. Eventually it's going to go away, ashes to ashes and dust to dust. But your spirit man is going to live forever. And if you haven't done everything that you need to do down here on the earth, you'll be back. You'll be like the Father told Nicodemus, you'll be born again. You'll be back down here in order to finish out the missions that were put before you. Like I said, got a lot of important information to go in these last few minutes of this video. We're going to jump over here to chapter 30. Now let me tell you how this all works. Praise the Father for the third testament of the Bible, because this thing actually has so much information in it. It tells us right here how the spirit works. Well, the cycle of the spirit is what I labeled this section of the video, starting right here in verse 86. He says, the spirit returns to earth and seeks a small and tender human body in order to rest in it and begin a new journey. It finds the small child designated to it and unites with that body in order to make restitution for its felons within my law. Knowing what it must do and aware that it belongs to the Father, the Spirit comes to earth clearly aware of its mission. All right. So here we have our reincarnated spirit. Now, this is what's going to happen after you die. So you die, you go into the spirit world. Okay. Now, some other stuff happened while you're in the spirit world. We're going to get to that in a second. But now here you are ready to come back down here to earth. And what does it say? The spirit returns to earth and seeks a small and tender human body in order to rest in it. Meaning the spirit man comes down here and finds a baby, a brand new baby. It finds the small child designated to it and unites with that body in order to make restitutions for its felon. We're talking about the body that is assigned to your spirit. Now, it's the Father who assigns these bodies to the spirit. He unites it. He actually picks the family that you are supposed to be with. All of this information is in the third testament of the Bible. He picks the family that you are supposed to be with. You are then born into that perfect family, the family that it is for your spirit to be to nourish your particular spirit. It finds that child that is designated to it in order to make restitution for its failing within my law. And that's important there, because once we learn to not fail within the law, once we learn to live within the law, we don't have to be reincarnated down here anymore. We don't have to come back. But until we get that everything right, we've had to keep coming down here over and over and over, learning how to do just that. He says, knowing what it must do and aware that it belongs to the Father, the Spirit comes to the earth clearly aware of its mission. Now, so look at this part right here. Go out there, think of a newborn baby. Maybe you guys have a newborn baby around, but think of this is what's going on in this child that haven't yet learned yet the ways of the world, maybe between the ages of, maybe less than 2 years old. He said the Spirit comes to the earth clearly aware of his mission, clearly aware of his mission. This child is aware of his mission. It's too young to know anything about anything else, but it's aware that it has a mission here on the earth. And the thing about it, you can go over and you can study on the internet about how these children are aware of their other. They are aware of some of this stuff. It was kind of strange to see over there that there's children even in America that are aware of this kind of stuff, but they're really young children even before the age of 2, like I said, because the ways of the world starts to change all of that. Let's look at verse 87. He says, in the first years it is innocent. It preserves its purity and remains in contact with the spiritual life. Okay? Then it begins to know sin. It looks closely at pride, arrogance, and at the rebelliousness of men before the just laws of the Father, and the flesh, which is stubborn by nature, begins to contaminate itself with evil. Having fallen into temptation, it forgets the mission which it brought to the earth and arises performing deeds which are contrary to the law. The spirit and the material body eat the forbidden fruits, and when they have fallen into the abyss, the last hour surprises them. Look at that, guys. That's our cycle right there. That's what happens to us. That's what happens to our spirit. We come down here innocent. We come down here pure. We come down here in touch with the spiritual world. But then what happens? We start noticing sin. We start noticing bad things going on in this world. Our parents start corrupting us, turns out. We start seeing stuff like pride. We start seeing stuff like arrogance and rebelliousness and, before the laws of the Father. And what do? We start embracing that stuff. And the more we pick up stuff like pride and arrogance and rebelliousness and the other sins of the flesh, which it says right here, which are stubborn by nature, we begin to contaminate ourselves with evil. And so that's what's going on with that little young child there. Even though he's pure and he's innocent, he is contaminating himself with evil and have fallen into temptation. It forgets the mission which it brought to the earth and arises performing deeds which are contrary to the law. Every one of us came down here with a mission. Every one of us came down here having made a contract with the Father on something we would do down here on earth. An important mission that was assigned to us. But what happened is when we became sinful individuals, we actually forgot that mission. We forgot what it was that we were supposed to be doing down here. The spirit and the material body eat the forbidden fruits, meaning we start doing those things that we ain't supposed to be doing and further separating ourselves from the Father. And when they have fallen into the abyss, the last hour surprises them, meaning after we have died, after we've gone and all turned wicked, let us say we all sinners, after we've all, lived this now sinful life, and then it says the last hour surprises us, meaning, the time when our bodies are separated once again from our spirits, then we're surprised. It's like we remember that, hey, wait, who are we supposed to, what, didn't we have a mission down here? Look at verse 88. He says, once again, the spirit finds itself in the spiritual valley, weary and burdened by the weight of its faults. Then it remembers the voice that spoke to it in another time, which still calls to it. And after much weeping, feeling lost and not knowing who it is, it remembers that it has already been in that place, meaning we start to recognize from where we've come. Our spirit man is starting to see the path home and starting to recognize, oh man, I've lost contact with this spirit world. I've lost contact with who I am. I had a mission and I messed it up. And that's where all of this weeping comes from, and this feeling of this lost feeling comes from. And it says, and not knowing who it is, it remembers that it has already been in that place. So we start to remember that we've been there before. That's where we was at before we was born into this life, up there in that spirit world. Once again, we find ourselves up there again, now we still haven't completed that mission. Now here in verse 89, he says, then the Father who has created it with so much love appears on its path, asking, who are you? From where do you come? And where do you go? Right? And then look at verse 90. He says, the Son recognizes in that voice the word of the one who has given it its existence, intelligence, and gifts. The voice of the Father who always forgives, who purifies and removes the darkness and leads it to the light. The child trembles because it knows it is before the judge, and speaks, saying, Father, my disobedience and my debts to you are very great, and I cannot aspire to live in your home, for I have no merits. Today, when I return to the spiritual valley, I see that I have only accumulated faults for which I must now make restitution. So now that we've given up the ghost, we've lost our motive force, we've lost our body, and have now been thrust back into the spirit world, we start to hear the voice of the Father. But the thing about it, he's so pure and he's so holy that when we find ourselves anywhere close to his presence, it reminds us of how sinful we are and how we don't deserve to be there. And right there where he's saying, I see that I have only accumulated faults for which I must make restitution. And guess what happens next, guys? Verse 91, but the loving Father once more points out the way, and once again the Spirit incarnates and the forms a part of humanity. Meaning we get to come back down here to earth and try all over again. That's why we've been down here so many times, is because we've been given chance after chance to get this thing right. But because of, what did it say, arrogance, because of pridefulness, because of the ways of this world, we have contaminated ourselves and messed up our missions that we had. And so when we get ready to try to go off to those higher mansions, we're blocked by our conscience. Our conscience makes us feel like we are sinful individuals and we don't deserve to go on. Look at verse 92. And now experience and with greater strength, and then subdues the material body in order to control it and to obey the divine dictates. The battle begins. The Spirit combats the sins which cause men to fall and wants to take advantage of the opportunity which has been granted for its salvation. It struggles from the beginning to end, and when the white hairs shine on the temple and the body which before was strong and healthy begins to slowly stoop under the weight of the years of lost energy, then the Spirit feels strong, more developed and experienced. Meaning we realize that we are supposed to be doing something good. Now we have come down to this earth, been reincarnated again, and we're living a different life. We're not letting arrogance, pride, and the ways of this world mess us up so bad. And so now we take advantage of the opportunity which has been granted for its salvation. Now we're taking advantage of these opportunities. He says, how great and disgusting sins appear to that being. It leaves that sin and reaches the end of its journey. Now it only awaits the moment in which the Father will call it, for it has come to the conclusion that the divine law is just, that the will of God is perfect, and that the Father lives in order to give life and salvation to his children. So now, in this lifetime, we messed up in the other lifetimes, but in this lifetime, praise the Lord, hopefully I should say, we start to understand, what does it say? That his divine law law is just, that we shouldn't be rejecting it, that the will of God is perfect. So this lifetime is the one that hopefully will get things right, and then we're able to go on to those higher mansions. It says, when the last day comes, it feels death in its flesh and has no pain. It departs silently and respectfully. It contemplates itself in the spirit, and that if it had a mirror before it, sees itself as beautiful and radiant with light. Then the voice speaks to it and asks, child, where are you going? And knowing who it is, it approaches the Father, allows his light to invade its being, and speaks thus, O Creator, O universal love, I come to you to rest and to give to you the fulfillment of my mission. We're talking about our cycle, our spiritual cycle here. This is what happens. We realize that his law is just. We realize that we're supposed to be obedient, that we're supposed to be going along with his will. Now we've lived a different kind of life, and now that we have perished and have gone on into the spirit world, now we have no problem standing before him. Now we want to see him. Now we want his light to shine on us. We don't feel so sinful. We don't feel so bad about the life that we've lived. Now we're not begging to go back down there to earth to make things better. Now we're ready to go on to these higher mansions. Now that we have fulfilled our mission, now we're ready to go on to some other mission. We ain't trying to come back down here to this rock. He says the account is settled. The spirit is healthy, cleansed and free of the chains of sin, and sees before it the reward which awaited it. Then it feels that it merges with the light of the Father, that its joy is greater, and it contemplates a mansion of peace, a holy land, a profound silence. Then it remains at rest in the bosom of Abraham. Now we're ready to go on to that higher mansion, guys. We hear about those many mansions that the Father had, but we have to get this one right down here. And that's why I wanted to go through that story there, talking about how our spirits are reincarnated, talking about the cycle of our spirit. All right? But don't go yet. We ain't finished yet. We still got a couple of more things to talk about here. We're going to go all the way up here to chapter 63. It says, you have been prepared to fulfill this great mission in the third era. Today, you know that in your bosom I have caused the people of Israel to be reincarnated. This I reveal to you. Understand that the seed that breathes in your being and the inner light that guides you is the same that poured out since the first era over the house of Jacob. Look, guys, I know I messed that up in my reading. I'm sorry, I'm such a slow reader. But understand what he's saying here. He's saying that the individuals that are hearing this third testament of the Bible, that are hearing these new revelations, that are hearing this and are on this mission in the third era, you individuals who are obeying the law, who are obeying the scripture, who are doing what you're supposed to be doing, charitable deeds and all of that, he's saying that you are the reincarnated spirit of Israel right here. You see that? Read it for yourself. That's what he's saying. You are the same individuals that was there in the first era. You are the individuals that was there with Moses. When Moses was standing up under the Mount Horeb and that lightning was flashing and the thunderings and the trumpets were blowing and he was there getting the 10 commandments. You were standing there, guys. We were standing there. We was getting that information then, and that's why we're the ones who are getting this information now. You remember the promises that was given to those individuals. Well, we are the ones now who are receiving the gift of those promises. That's what he's saying there. Read it for yourself. He says, you are Israelites to the spirit. You possess spirituality, the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You are branches of the blessed tree that gives both shade and fruit to humanity. Talking about you individuals. See, in the third, and I know I don't have all of the verses right here to back up what he's saying right here or what I'm about to say, but you are the reincarnated spirits of these individuals. This is why why you're able to hear the third testament. All of those people on there talking about, I don't believe this and I don't believe that, they are the reincarnated spirits of the same ones that put the Messiah on the cross. They are the same ones that was talking all of that junk back there in the second era. They're the same ones that was back there in that got burned up in the desert there with Moses. Their spirits have been reincarnated too. But the ones who are hearing these messages, we're the good guys. Verse 11 says, that is why I named you my firstborn, and why I sought you out in this era to manifest in you my third revelation to the world. Meaning, this is why you guys hear in the third testament. If you look at these videos that's being pushed up, guys, there's only a few people that are actually listening to these videos. If you look over even at the third testament of the Bible and see the audio book, there's only a few thousand people that have actually listened to that thing. It's been up since about 2006 or so, and there's only a few thousand people that's actually listened to that thing. Why? It's only certain people that's supposed to get it. And look right here, he's saying, this is why I call you my firstborn. This is why I sought you out in this era to manifest in you my third revelation. Meaning, it ain't by accident that you get in the third testament of the Bible. It ain't no accident at all. He led you to it, and it ain't no accident that them other guys aren't getting it to it. They just haven't been led to it. They ain't been led to it yet. They gonna get it one day. Maybe in the spirit world. Verse 12 says, it is my will that the people of Israel resurge spiritually among humanity, so that they may behold the true resurrection of the flesh. See, this is why they don't want you to understand the true resurrection of the flesh, is because when they start to make you understand, when you start to understand that you are reincarnated spirits, then it starts to make sense. Well, wait a minute, I've lived before. Maybe I lived during these eras. Maybe I was there with Moses. Maybe I'm somebody special. But if they talking about, if they say that you live one life and you ready to be thrown in a hole, then you ain't nobody. If you ain't done nothing good in this life, then you must not have never done nothing good ever. And you must be worthless, worthy only to be their slaves to materialism or what. This is why they don't want you to understand that information. This is why the Pope is trying to keep it from you. This is why the Pope's minions are trying to keep it from you. This is why they're trying to block this information out. They don't want you to know it. They don't want you to know who you are. And who are you? What does it say? Israel, you are the resurgence of spiritual Israel. The resurgence of spiritual Israel. The reincarnated spirits of Israel. All right, this is the last verse we're going to talk about down here in verse 49. Again, this is coming out of chapter 39. So if you want to push the pause button and read about the 144,000 chosen, you can do so up here. We're going to jump all the way down here to verse 49, which says, I tell you who hear me, learn to pray and keep vigil, to carry your cross with love and practice righteousness and obedience, so that this life, which has been the most luminous reincarnation of your spirit, is not sterile, making you lament the time lost and the gifts unused. All right, guys. So this is why we work so hard. This is why we're trying to get an understanding. This is our most luminous reincarnation ever. This is the best time ever for our spirit. We have the Bible now. Remember, we didn't get that thing until 1611. So it was hard for us to even understand what the law was before then. And and now we're living in this era. We have the information. We could do a lot of stuff in this lifetime that we haven't been able to do in our previous lifetimes. And so what we have to do, we have to take advantage of it so that it's not sterile, making us lament the time lost and the gifts unused. So see what it says right here? Learn to pray. Learn to pray. That's important. Spirit to spirit communication. You can hear about prayer on our channel. We teach about prayer on our channel. Turns out most people don't know how to pray, so check it out, because you maybe some areas that you can have to improve on your prayer. Keep vigil. That means keep watch. Keep looking out for them. It says, and carry your cross with love. This is all of the bad stuff that's happening to us, guys. We have to learn to embrace it with love. Don't fight, don't rebel when people slander your name, put you down, and all of that kind of stuff. You got to be like the Messiah, and forgive them. Practice righteousness. That's doing the law and being obedient. All of that stuff. The only thing it didn't mention right here is charitable deeds. I don't know why I didn't mention doing charity for one another. It should have. We got to love one another. We got to do stuff for each other. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you got any questions, if you got any comments, please leave them below. Hit the like button if you got anything out of it. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. You might not see our videos pop up like you see other people's videos. It's because, there's a lot of suppression going on with this type of information. People don't want this kind of stuff to get out. So you may be missing a lot of videos that we're putting out. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that bell button so you can see these videos when they come out. All right, continue to pray for us. Shalom.